Alison Rosen. Alison Rosen is your new best friend. Alison, with her good times never end. Alison Rosen, doing the wavy pencil dance again. Allison's your new best friend.
Hey everyone, hi, hello, welcome to another episode of Alison Rosen is your new best friend. This is the first Monday episode recorded in 2021. I'm very excited to welcome my guest. He is an old school YouTuber, very, very popular and successful from the early days of the platform. Excuse me. He hosted a pop culture and celebrity entertainment show, very funny show called What the Buck. And he went on to appear as a correspondent and a host on television. And now he's left that whole world behind him. And he's in Denver and he's a life coach and evidently much, much happier. I need to dig into all of this. Please welcome to the show, Michael Buckley. Hello.
Well, hello. It's so nice to see you. I feel like this is such a lovely reconnection, reunion, first time podcast. I'm so happy. I feel like we've been friends yet not friends for years, and I'm just so happy to connect with you.
Same. And we should be, full disclosure, like so many connections that are happening in this pandemic, virtual connections, this one was beset with technological difficulties. It almost seemed like it wasn't going to happen. So I feel already like we have overcome something, and now we're trauma bonded.
Totally trauma bonded. And it's like, this is already more fun because it was a journey to get here. We had a Zoom issue. We had a connectivity issue. I didn't know how to use my microphone because, like I told you, I'm 100 years old. And then I figured out my microphone and you're like, yeah, I still don't think you did it right. So then we figured out my earphones. And so it was 4 or 5 steps and a chicken salad sandwich later. And here we are.
Here we are, ready to make the best episode ever of Alison Rosen is your new best friend. Here we go. I mean, I like to claim they're all the best, but I know that you're very into positive psychology.
I'm very into positive psychology.
I am wondering, and I'm very into psychology, but what specifically is positive psychology?
So positive psychology, it's interesting because I remember I was a psych major in college and I remember studying, disorders and pathological things and realizing by sophomore year that I wasn't that interested in traditional psychology. I didn't want to diagnose people. I didn't want to go Freud and down a rabbit hole of why are you like this and what's going on with your mother. And again, I think, traditional psychology tends to be what's wrong with you. I think positive psychology is more what's right with you. So, I mean, I don't want to ignore that there is lots of pathological things in the world. And I do think of positive psychology as a slightly different field. And I love it so much. I think it's just so interesting and so fun and so life affirming. And so, yeah, like it feels like a different category. But for someone like me, it's just a much more fulfilling and interesting category to study and be involved in.
So is it a school of psychology? Like, are there therapists who are practicing positive psychology, or is it more in the sort of self-help zone?
I mean, I'm sure there are therapists and people who are licensed practitioners who are using the tools of positive psychology. Like there's plenty of PhD level psychologists who are totally in the world and that's what their research is and that's what their clients is. So totally. So right. And I don't think, I think they coexist and I think they can be beautifully complementary to each other. So, I mean, my coaching credentials are certainly not medical credentials. I mean, life coaching is a totally goofy field. Like you could literally go on Twitter right now and say, I'm a life coach. And like, it's a joke on a sitcom. If you ever watch The Connors, like Aunt Jackie, Laurie Metcalf is like, I'm a life coach. And the whole audience laughs. Or if you watch Mom, Alison Janney, I'll be like, I'm her life coach. And the studio audience bursts into laughing. Right. So I understand it's a very goofy, non-regulated field, but I think it's also very powerful. And I think in 2021, I think we all benefit from coaching. Like coaching is an interesting field. Like, I mean, it is kind of consulting your brain. It is kind of exercise and fitness. It's working out your mind. So again, the way you talk about it, like when I started coaching, I remember even my father saying to me, why don't you tell people you're consulting? I'm like, right, because you think it sounds so goofy that I tell people that I'm a life coach. And so I'm willing to have people go, that sounds sounds dumb, knowing that I'm the product of life coaching and I also do very powerful work with people. So, yeah. As I knock my technology out, I'm like, the earbuds. What's an earbud? I haven't had these in years. I'm like, ooh, earbuds. What's happening? See, I can't laugh. I'm so bad at this. So if you're just listening to this, please know that I just literally knocked my earbuds out of my ear, not once, but twice.
That was amazing, though. Who's like who's a real, you pop culture expert should be able to nail this one. Who's like the most famous clumsy guy? Mr. Bean is clumsy, right?
Oh my God, I love Mr. Bean. I'll tell you a funny Mr. Bean story.
Okay.
So once I was figure skating, because I used to figure skate.
I forgot about that.
I was a figure skater and I did lots of commentary and stuff. And this taught me a life lesson about never to tell somebody who they look like. Because again, if I said so I was skating around and I told somebody who they look like and they said, oh, Joe Jonas. And I was like, no, you look like Mr. Bean. So now it's like, I remember seeing this boy and thinking like, does he know he looks like Mr. Bean? And so I did. Like I was like, so who do you get told you look like? And he said, Joe Jonas. And I said, oh, okay. So again, he still has no idea that I think he looks like Mr. Bean.
Yes, that is such a life lesson. I think unless it's like Brad Pitt or Angelina Jolie or something.
Right. You look like Brad Pitt. No, you look like I get Sean Penn. Now that I have a mustache, I get Edward Norton. When I was 19 years old and bald, I got William Hurt. And I was like, I'm 19 years old. I look like a 40-year-old man. So I've never necessarily, gotten like, oh, you look like this guy. I'm like, do I? Thank you, question mark.
So have we ever actually met? I know I used to do Red Eye, and I know that you were on Red Eye.
I used to do Red Eye, 2007, 2008. It was such a goofy experience. I feel like I blocked it out because I feel like as I tweet now about Fox News and certain people, I was like, oh, I sat there with them. Like, I know these people.
I know.
I've blocked it out. I was there, and I also don't even think I realized that it was Fox News because it was the first place. So they found me on YouTube. They sent me emails. They sent me car service to Connecticut, which is like 2 hours away. I would show up. I would talk about things, and then maybe a year later people would be like, oh, why are you going on Fox News? I'm like, I don't know, they're sending me a car. And so I did pilots for them. I remember they did that Lips and Ears with Courtney Friel, and I would talk about gossip. I don't remember. I also, fun fact about me, I took a lot of Ambien from 2003 until 2012. So I definitely, some things are foggy, but I really do. I've seen clips. I know I've got clips. I very not much remember. We probably were on once together, bantering about something, but I don't remember.
I know. I have a similar thing with Fox because I am outspoken, now. But I've always been I was going to say I've always been liberal. However, my husband, who is like incredibly progressive, has told me that liberal, to people who are really progressive, the term liberal doesn't mean what we think it means. Have you heard this too?
I have, and that's why it's so weird too how in 2021 I feel like I'm re-examining all the language of how we identify. Like even in I'm a Christian, and recently on Facebook I updated it to put I'm a progressive Christian because I want you to know I'm a progressive Christian. There's a difference. And like what you're saying, I'm a liberal. Those are different people than the people who support the progressive causes. So, I understand the language of it all.
Yeah, right. So I've always not been a Fox person. Even back then, I wasn't either. But I feel like it's more problematic to say that you've appeared on Fox now. And I did like a ton of shows because they were really nice. Everyone I dealt with there was really nice. They wanted to put me on TV. They sent a car. Yeah. They did fun makeup. What's not to love?
Yeah, I had a great experience. I loved my producer. I loved the co-host. Like I think of the guy who's on the 5 now, Greg, whatever his name is, who hosted Red Eye. He was lovely to me. He laughed at everything I said. We had a lovely time. I had a great experience.
Right.
It is interesting to see the movie like Bombshell or hear about all the sexual abuse allegations because, right, it's like, oh, I'm sure I was walking around the hall and there was gossip and innuendo and very much a loud behavior where now if I really did think about it, and I mean, all of us who went to work in the 1990s or the early 2000s, you worked in an atmosphere where you probably heard plenty of sexual harassment and it didn't even occur to you to complain about it because this is just who we are. And this is how we talk to women. I was watching this sounds so silly, but I watch everything with a different lens now. And so I love watching old TV shows and being like, oh God, like the way men talk to women and the audience is laughing. And I was recently, sorry to go off track, but I think about this stuff all the time. I was watching an episode of Charlie's Angels and there was a nurse and she had, there was an attempted rape and the angels sat down to talk to her and Kelly Garrett, Jacqueline Smith looked at her and said, why do you think he was targeting you? And she looked at her and said, oh, well, I don't know. Maybe it's true what they say. Blondes have more fun. Like she made
Oh my God.
She made a joke about an attempted rape, and Kelly Garrett, Jacqueline Smith just said, and walked away from her. Like there was a woman getting attempted rape wasn't that big a deal. A man being disgusting to his secretary was movies and laughter. And of course, so now it's interesting how now it's like, no, this is not who we are anymore. And we are, but we don't wish to be this. So, so that was, again, didn't mean to derail, but when you said Fox, I was like, right, it's like, there is a reckoning now and there is an awareness now where I'm not going to sit there and my ambitions are not so great that I need to go in this man's office and drop my pants, you know?
Right. It's interesting. I've been thinking about cancel culture lately. And generally when people gripe about cancel culture, I don't agree with them. I feel like, but it's consequences. But the people that you're talking about, I feel like they probably did horrible things. And then recently, someone that I've had on my show who I know to be a decent, I honestly, I don't know him that well, but I believe he's a decent, actually, you might be aware of it. It's Bean Dad. Did you follow the whole Bean Dad saga?
I saw all those things the other day. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so it's this guy, John Roderick, who is in this band, The Long Winters, and co-hosts a number of podcasts, including one with Ken Jennings, of Jeopardy, who is potentially being held up to be like to be the next host. And he also ran, speaking of progressive, like on a very progressive ticket, ran for office in Seattle. And he did this very long, wordy, series of tweets about how his 9-year-old daughter came to him and she was hungry and he's like, just put some baked beans in a pot and she didn't know how to open the can of beans. And so he wanted her to figure out how to use the can opener. And it was like too long and it was a little bit like, it was indulgent for sure. But all these people responded saying that the way he treated her, not helping her, making her go hungry was abusive.
Oh God,
and he
right. Oh God.
got a mob essentially came. By the way, this is not even like the real news of the day. Trump,
right.
As we record this, Trump just got kicked off Twitter. The coup happened. But back in a simpler time of, 1.5 days ago, this was all going down. He has been put on indefinite suspension from his podcast network. People then found tweets of his from 10 years ago that were problematic, but he says they were written in a sarcastic tone, which I believe because given what his politics are, I don't believe he actually would be using, I don't believe him to be anti-Semitic. I don't believe him to be racist. There are people who would say it's not mine to say, maybe not, but still. But anyway, his life is fucking ruined over this tweet thread. And that made me go, okay, now we've gone too far. And then it's like, if you have a problem with cancel culture, is it just that now they've come after someone that you agree with? I don't know. Maybe mob mentality is problematic all over the place.
I feel like, right, it's like, what's the consequence? What's the behavior? And if the behavior and the consequence line up, it seems to make sense. And then, right, and then your brain starts going, but, and we can make exceptions. Full disclosure, I've gone through all my tweets, believe me. And if I've looked for certain keywords, I made terrible jokes. I'm never going to be, I don't think I'm going to be very famous or in the public eye again, but someone could go digging on me and someone could find something terrible and disgusting I've said, and I've apologized, and I made a video probably in 2015 or talking about how I've grown and evolved into a different version of me. That doesn't mean in 2007 when I started YouTube, and my inspirations were really over the top, and always in my brain, I'm not excusing myself. I knew exactly what I was doing, but I was saying nonsensical things on purpose. Like, I cast myself in this role of this flaming homosexual who was ranting. And then in my brain, I was like, but I'm making black jokes, gay jokes, lesbian jokes, thin people jokes, fat people jokes, whatever jokes. So, right, I know better. I do better now. And that's it. I'm a lovely person. And so if somebody wanted to ruin my life, I always say I canceled myself before anybody could cancel me. But like, my YouTube channel's on private. I probably have 5 videos. I wrote a blog post about it because I said, I'm not on YouTube anymore. And it feels like I moved out of my house and I've left it unattended for people to wander through. So I don't need people. Again, I'm not embarrassed about things I said, but that's not who I am in 2021. So I'd rather make a first impression differently with you. Right. So again, I'm not embarrassed. I'm not ashamed. I'm not even really apologetic, but I am, again, I know I was funny. I was hilarious. I was making jokes that seemed appropriate at the time that now they just don't seem appropriate, So that's okay,
Well, so let's get into your, how your story as a content creator and then your decision to leave. Remind me where you grew up.
So I grew up in central Connecticut, about halfway between Hartford and New Haven. And, I always wanted to be an actor. I was never a very good actor. And I thought I could probably be a TV presenter. I'm pretty charismatic. I'm pretty funny. Like, I feel like when I would watch TV hosts, or talk show hosts, I'm like, that's what I should be doing. Mm-hmm. And so in 2005, I made the decision that I was going to figure out a way to be successful as a talk show host. So I'd go to New York and I'd go to those silly things that you pay money and you listen to people who are like the 3rd level tier producer and they give you dumb advice. And now I'd sit there and I'd be like, what? I can't believe I paid $200 to sit here. And that was the time when you'd have to get things on tape. So I would make VHS tapes of me doing footage and reading whatever. And I did. I started a public access show in my hometown of Wallingford, Connecticut, just as an excuse and a way to get some footage of me in front of a green screen, right, being telegenic and charismatic and delivering material. And I really just fell in love with it. And I remember I started doing it in May of 2005, and I would spend all day Sunday, 12, 18 hours, writing jokes, writing scripts. I took it so seriously. I was so into it. It was like escape from I had an office job and I had a husband and I loved having this just for me. Mm-hmm. Like, it was so fun. And so I started doing that. And then in 2006, my cousin who worked at the little public access thing as my volunteer helper, started putting clips on YouTube. And, eventually someone watched one of them and it was 200,000 views. And that's when my brain was like, oh, this is something. Mm-hmm. So maybe I don't even need to be on TV. I know about 300,000 people are watching on Fox. If I can get 200,000 views like this, maybe I will just be on the internet. And so beginning in January of 2007, I started posting 5 days a week. I formatted as the What the Buck Show. I really was one of the first people having a show on the internet. I think there was Rocket Boom. I think there was one on Lonely Girl was a series, but I was definitely one of the first, if not the first, talking head delivering, a hot take on screen. And I did that, and then I got in the YouTube partnership program, and I became very successful quickly, and I started making money the second year. And so by 2008, I had an HBO development deal. I was working with Sony. They were paying me lots of money to promote things. I was so funny, too. I would reach out to people and say, I have a lot of subscribers. Nobody knew anything about marketing. Nobody was a YouTube manager. There wasn't a full screen or a Maker Studios. There was just me reaching out to Sony Pictures and saying, I really like your content. I have a lot of subscribers. Maybe I could mention your things and you could pay me, and they would pay me like $3,500 a pop. Like I was a wheeler and a dealer. Like I was just making money and soliciting. Right. And I think back now and I'm like, I'm so impressed with myself.
Yeah,
that
that's really entrepreneurial.
I would just reach out to people and I would get brand deals or I would promote other things. So I was so wildly in love with it. But because I was a first generation YouTuber, I really had no frame of reference for where my career was going and what I wanted out of it. And so, when I look back at my YouTube career, I was like 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I was very successful. Even 2012, I was still like in the top 20. But at that point, I was starting to be like, I gotta do this. I also liked it so much better when it wasn't that big, when it was just a small little thing and there weren't that many other creators. And I just loved it for what it was. And then by 2013, it was just like everybody was on YouTube. And I had lost interest in it. And at that point, I was very disinterested in pop culture. I barely watched any TV. So I had created this online persona of this bitchy gay guy who rambled about topics that I had no connection with. And so by 2014, my life just exploded. I left my marriage. I was drinking heavily. And so I didn't want to do this anymore, but I couldn't fathom that, oh God, do I have to get a job? Like really, like what's it going to tell the world? Like I made lots of money and now I'm going to go get a job. And so, I mean, for years I just did, I always tell people, like my last year successfully on YouTube, I probably made 382,000, good money. Then the next year I made 82. So I was making like $500,000, and I love talking about money, so I'm just dropping numbers. So because now the top YouTubers make like $20 million, but at the time I had a couple years where I'd make $500,000 or $600,000, which is a lot of money. Yeah. And then one year I made 382, and my brain went, "Oh God, you're in trouble." And then the next year I made 82. So I went from 382 to 82. And then my year was drunk, getting divorced, dog dying, and I made no money. So it was just kind of like, it was time for me to do something else. I always say YouTube was done with me, and I was done with YouTube. And so I very happily retired the What the Buck show in 2016. And then I spent the next probably year dabbling in content, still doing some brand deals, but working on becoming a life coach, growing my coaching business, and recentering my content more as coaching and personal development. And then by 2018, I was completely done. In 2019, I tapped in occasionally because I was like, maybe I'll do this as a hobby. I did have a couple more hours in the day, so I don't even think I was monetizing or trying to be YouTube famous. I just thought, to see if I could enjoy it as a hobby. Like I make my living doing something else, but maybe it will be fun to do some content. I did it for like 5 months, and then that was like, no, I'm done. Yeah. It's almost like being a professional athlete. I was a professional athlete. I played it recreationally briefly after, and then now I'm peacefully, happily, so proud of what I achieved for 10 years, but so grateful and relieved to be on with my life in a different direction. Yeah.
The 382 to 82, was that because of diminished views, or were you making less content?
I was making lots of content. So one day in 2012, the algorithm changed. And again, I'm not blaming YouTube. I'm not blaming the algorithm. This is not a victim story. But I used to make $20,000 or $30,000 a month. And then one month I made like $1,800. And that was the moment I saw. So people always, they talk about the adpocalypse or the whatever. I saw the moment I went from making easy, lots of money to no money very quickly. So it was a combination of the YouTube algorithm did change and my earnings did take a hit. I did have lots of, a lot of sponsorships that was committed for a year. So like I had lots of like, you do this, we pay you $12,000 a month to do this. You do this, we pay you. So I had plenty of money coming in other places. So that's why it didn't even matter. Like my YouTube views were low, my AdSense was low, but I was still making enough. But again, there was still a disconnect between why am I staying? Is it because I'm embarrassed that it's gone so terribly? And that was the truth. For a couple years, I felt embarrassed. I was like, really? Because really, I'd go on YouTube, I'd make a video, I'd have 1 million subscribers, I'd get no views. People would write, what happened to this guy? And so, it wasn't that upsetting, but it was the truth. It's like, you've got to go do something else. And so, I'm so grateful that I had those years where I was kind of a mess and in confusion and in overwhelm and in, oh, woe is me. And now being on the other side of it, it's like, those were the most important years of my life. Like, life is very easy when you're making $600,000 a year and people think you're fun and sexy and going to VidCon and have a line of people waiting for you. And then when you go to, I always say, I love what I know what it's like to be in a hit. I know what it's like to post a video on YouTube and get hundreds of thousands of views right away, 10,000 comments, everybody's engaged. And I know what it's like to post a video and get like 10 comments. And so again, and I know what it's like to go to VidCon and have thousands of people there cheering for you. And I know what it's like when they have a big room and 10 people show up and you're standing there like, yep, this is where I'm at. So I'm so grateful that I know what it's like to be a hit and I know what it's like to be a flop. And that's the thing, as a coach, I don't coach happiness. I coach humanness. Like, I'm here for the human experience. So I like the good, the bad, the ugly, the gross. So I think about those couple of years of drunkenness and messiness. And those were some of the best years of my life as I evolved into this different version of myself.
If the hits had continued, would you still be there?
So that's an interesting question. I don't know how to answer that because I don't ever play. Like, what if I was still married? What if I still lived in Connecticut? I don't really play those games with myself. I would like to think I would have moved on because I really wasn't satisfied. I wasn't fulfilled. I wasn't enjoying it. I had many years where I would make a video and then I just couldn't wait to go do something else versus now I coach for 8 hours a day and I'm high as a kite. Like, I have so much dopamine and so much joy and I can't. So versus, you know what, I could be a better YouTuber now. Like, I have the mindset for it. I have the personality for it. That's why it's funny. People will see me on Instagram and they're like, you should be on TikTok or you should make, I'm like, I've done, or people always tell me you should have a podcast.
Right.
I don't want to do any of this. I have a job. I have a career. My life is ridiculously satisfying and meaningful. And when you said in the opening that I was happier now, I'm not happier now. It's not, happiness is pretty easy for me. It's not even like I was unhappy. I was just, just a little it wasn't even happiness. It was just the purpose piece, the meaning piece, and I don't know, like I peaked. Like, it's like I said, you can only go to the Olympics so many times. I went to the Olympics. I won. I don't need to go back to the Olympics. I have nothing to prove. And and I don't know. So, and again, in 10 years, you might interview me and who knows, maybe I'll be a talk show host or maybe I'll have a podcast. But right now I'm just too busy enjoying life, which this is the other thing I did not do when I was a YouTuber. I was constantly, a little bit imposter syndrome, meaning thinking this is dumb. Like, I can't believe they're paying me $15,000 to mention this product. I feel like an idiot. Like, I like, yay, but I feel like an idiot.
Right.
This was early on. Like, I didn't even know what I was doing. And then also, so it was either this is kind of dumb or also this is going to go away. Like, there's no way this is sustainable. Like, here come all the up and coming people and I could see the look in their eye. Like, they're way more into it than I ever was. Like, they're way more interested in YouTube culture and calls to action and collabing and asking a question to get a comment. And I have again, I loved it, but I'm very happy to be doing other things with my life,
It's really interesting, the idea of just drawing a line and being like, I do not make content anymore. I was listening to you on Grace Helbig's show, and when she was just like, it seemed to me like there was almost envy and admiration in her, and maybe I'm projecting, in her voice when she's like, you did it, you left it behind. Because I think that I think everyone who makes content wonders, what would it be like, even if you're happy, you wonder, what would it be like if I were a civilian, if I left this behind, and I was trying to figure out earlier, like, what is it? What's the grip? Aside from, money, I think it's this idea that, like, there's something that makes you feel special if you're making content, and it's like, oh, I'll just be a regular person.
Yeah, it's a lot of external validation. It's a lot of, you get emails from producers who want to work with you. You get offers to do a book deal. And someone like Grace is so ridiculous. If Grace ever hears this, hi, Grace, I love you. Grace is so talented. Grace is a best-selling author. Grace has a great pod. Grace is going to do stand-up. Grace can do a million things in her life without making YouTube videos. Like, YouTube is such a small piece of Grace's puzzle of her success and her makeup. So, But yeah, like I think it is. It's easy external validation. It does. And also, but here's the thing, like if I had my mindset now, I would have been like, I'm adding value to people's life. People love me. They think I'm funny. Like, so me making a joke about Miley Cyrus is just as hilarious and important as me doing coaching work, you know? So if I did it now, I would be able to attach more meaning to my comedic persona.
Right.
I do think it's like anything that feels like, I feel the same way when I stopped drinking alcohol. I feel like I got out of a cult. I felt like, oh my God, I don't have to drink anymore. Thank God. When I got off of YouTube, I did feel this sense of relief of like, oh, I don't have to engage with people anymore in small talk and comment sections. And again, it's lovely, but I don't have to do that. And if I don't know, like, I don't know. I had something else. I was thinking about the content thing. I do Instagram stories, and that is fun. And a couple thousand people watch that, but that's just fun. Like so if you did like What the Buck and you are currently still interested in Michael Buckley, you can follow me on Instagram, Hey Michael Buckley, and I do make stories every day. I say good morning. I do some advice. I share things about my niece and my dog, and it is fun and it's silly and it's lovely. So that is a fun hobby, and I do think that keeps me feeling like I'm creating content and I get to be hilarious and I get to be a bit of my on-camera persona without doing it for a living. And that's the other challenging thing I struggle with, and I like to say it this way. It's difficult when your hobby becomes your career because like I said, I did this effortlessly and easily for 50 hours a week, not making a dime. I just loved it. And then it became my career, and the stress of, oh, this is it. This was me escaping from my day job. And then it's like, oh, I guess I'm doing this now. And so that's the thing. And now I know in the work I'm doing, because I thought about this about a year ago, I thought about like, would I do YouTube again? So if you said right now, you make the amount of money you make a year, if you could do this YouTube and make the same amount, would you do it? Absolutely not. So I know that. Like, it's like, no. It's not. So I know that. Like, I'm doing what I'm doing and I'm deeply fulfilled by it. So it's not like, oh, if I could make money, I would do it. It's like, no, I don't want to do it. I really don't. I would do TV appearances. Like I would, I love doing TV. I love being on TV shows where, like you said, you'd show up, they do your makeup, you would go home. It was nothing. It was easy. Someone produced your segment. You just showed up and were charismatic. Being a TV personality is the easiest job in the world. You have nothing to do. When I was on Live with Kelly for a week, I just showed up and I was hilarious, and they listed topics and I offered an opinion, and then we went to commercial, and it was simple. Being a content creator where you're writing and you're filming and you're editing and you're promoting and you're marketing.
You're
and
hustling.
again, it's a lot. So again, I never loved I loved being funny, and I loved being comedic, and I loved watching myself and thinking I was funny. The other stuff, I never liked editing. I never liked any of the other things. So it's like, I don't want to do it. So I don't want to do it.
How did you learn to edit? Because that's a hard thing to do.
My editing was generally one take, because that's why all my videos, if you remember the What the Buck show, I would sit here in front of the screen, I would have a script, I would scroll as I was talking, and I would say What the Buck, and I would be done. And because I didn't want to edit, there were no cuts, there were no takes, and then I would just go and drag in like pictures in the corner, so it was very easy. Like, there was no effects, there was no graphics, it was very low level. I think I probably watched a YouTube tutorial how to green screen, and I think somebody probably gave me some tips. But again, my editing was roll credits, me talking, end credits. Like, there was never any editing, or production value necessarily,
Right.
Yeah.
So were you at one point dependent on external validation in a way that you're not now?
No, I don't think that's it. And that's why I think I'm lucky I started at like 30, because I can't imagine if I was 12 or 16 or 18. And I see some of the kids who I know who are 25 now, and I see them on Twitter, and I'm like, they're struggling. They're thinking, what am I going to do for the rest of my life? I didn't go to college. I might have $1 million in the bank, which doesn't last very long. And so what am I going to do? Maybe I'll go on Twitch for 6 hours a day. Maybe I'll hope TikTok monetizes. But they know they have to figure out, maybe I'll be a consultant for other brands or something, but most people would get exhausted. Like, actors go home. YouTube celebrities are YouTube celebrities. It's like they don't, there was no frame of reference for take a month off, Take a summer vacation. You know, there's that constant desire to be relevant and crank out content. And so we're seeing a lot of creators. There's some who have been great from day one. Like Phil DeFranco got it right from day one. He's been able to stay on. He makes a lot of money. He looks like he's having a good time. He has a family and a wife and a life, and life is good for Phil. Justine has done a great job from day one, keeping her content and doing so again, there's some examples, but a lot of other people who were my generation really have come and gone, and you've seen the emotional gymnastics they put themselves through. Hey guys, I'm back, and they look miserable. Or hey guys, I'm, so I hope for all of them that they either find enjoyment and can attach meaning into being a content creator, or like me, they can happily tap out. And again, I'm not discouraged. I'm not defeated. I'm not like, oh my God, it didn't work out for me. I'm not a star. My life is so wonderful. So if you're listening to this and you're a content creator, please know there are many wonderful things you can be doing with your life outside of YouTube or Twitch or whatever you're doing.
Right. I want to find out about your childhood and who you were then. But first, I want to tell you guys, Alison Rosen is Your New Best Friend is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Counseling. The new year can be a good time for a mental health check-in. If you've always wanted to try therapy, or you'd like to try it again, or you just need someone to talk some things out with, BetterHelp offers online licensed professional therapists who are trained to listen and to help with issues including anxiety, depression, difficulty sleeping, LGBT matters, trauma, grief, self-esteem, and more. Finding a therapist can be intimidating and time-consuming. With BetterHelp, you simply fill out a questionnaire to help assess your specific needs and then get matched with your counselor in under 48 hours. Easily schedule secure video or phone sessions, plus exchange unlimited messages with your therapist from the comfort of your own home. Everything you share is confidential. If you're unhappy with your counselor, you can request a new one at any time, no additional charge. You are not committed. I know some people are worried about starting up therapy right now and thinking, but what if it's not the right fit? They will get you to the right person. BetterHelp is a convenient and affordable option, and our listeners get 10% off your first month with the discount code BESTFRIEND. Get started today at BetterHelp. That's BetterHelp, betterhelp.com/bestfriend. There's no shame in asking for help. I also want to tell you guys about Figs. Healthcare professionals continue to put themselves on the front lines. Figs is on a mission to celebrate and support their selflessness with scrubs that are precisely engineered to help healthcare workers perform at their best. And right before the pandemic, I visited a friend who was in the hospital, and I was noticing that the nurses and doctors who came in the room, their scrubs fit so well and they were so stylish. And I wanted to say, are those Figs? And I did not, because I don't know if you've noticed when you visit someone in the hospital, anyone who comes into the room, they just care about the patient, and they're like, they almost want to throw you out of the room, like Grey's Anatomy. So I didn't ask them my question, but I'm pretty sure they were wearing Figs, because Figs makes stylish scrubs. They have so many pockets, you'll be like, there's too many pockets. And here's another thing, though. They're pretty much for healthcare professionals, but maybe you are not a healthcare professional, but you want some scrubs. Daniel has a hoodie made by them. It's so comfortable. It's got a ton of pockets. I almost bought a lab coat. I don't need one, but I wanted one. Some of their styles include over 10 pockets, which is incredibly useful when you have a stethoscope, pens, a pen light, scissors, tape, alcohol pads. For me, my phone. Their core scrubs stick around 365 days a year, never going out of stock or out of style. Mix and match any of the super popular core scrubs with each other for a quick wardrobe refresh. So if you're one of the awesome humans who work in healthcare, Figs wants you to wear the scrubs you deserve and enjoy. 15% off your first order. And if you're not working on the front lines, thank someone that is with the best scrubs in the world. Figs will give you 15% off too. Use code BESTFRIEND15 at checkout. Again, that's BESTFRIEND15 at checkout. Head to wearfigs, wearfigs.com, and enter code BESTFRIEND15 at checkout. Wearfigs.com, BESTFRIEND15 at checkout. Get ready to love your scrubs. Okay, Michael Buckley, we're back. So yes, what was your childhood like?
Oh my God, my childhood was fun. Like I was a silly, goofy little kid. Like I knew I was in the homosexual category by the age of 4. Like I was all into the Dukes of Hazzard. I was like, those guys are hot. I was watching One Day at a Time, Alice and the Jeffersons, and now when parents are like, "Ooh, I don't want my kids on their screens all day," I'm like, I watch TV 24 hours a day. I turned out great. So I mean, my childhood was very fun. I love gymnastics. I love figure skating. I love superheroes in DC Comics. I had a lot of just interest. I had a lot of hobbies. It was interesting. I just had a fun childhood. I have a twin sister, and that just made life super fun. I live in the basement now. My twin sister and her husband and 3 children live upstairs. So I always joke, I knew we'd end up back together. But yeah, I had a fun childhood. I was a goofy, silly kid. I had a lovely mother, a nice father, and an older brother, and I don't know, like I had and life was pretty simple. Like I just remember being a pretty happy kid. Like, yeah, childhood was pretty fun. I don't think I was that smart. I think I was never that into school. I was into, getting, sounds so silly. I was into like putting on my first day of school outfit and matching my trapper keeper. But like, it's so funny because people would be like, what's your favorite subject? I'd be like, I don't know. Like they all just blend. Like I just want to go home and watch One Day at a Time, Alice and the Jeffersons. But so yeah, I don't think I was that into school. I think I loved life early on. I think I was one of those people who, like, again, as I am as an adult, like I think I love life. So I think childhood, I really enjoyed life. Yeah. And that's a summary of my childhood.
And what you had a good relationship with your parents?
I was wildly in love with my mother. My father worked a lot, and so I feel like most of my memories growing up were my mother. But yeah, I love my parents. I felt very lucky in the parent department. They were just funny, and I always felt loved as a child. I never had a care in the world. Like we had a lovely home. I felt very taken care of, and I do. And now as a grown-up looking back, I feel very grateful because I do. I never felt like, I don't know, like I always felt safe and loved as a child. So as a grown-up, I definitely realized the value of that.
And you said that you realized that you were gay when you were 4. Did you ever, how did you feel about that? Like, did you feel different than other people or isolated, or did you negativity around that?
I always felt different. Like I'm someone who I always have been very connected to myself, and I always felt like I was on my own little planet. Like I felt like a really goofy person. Mm-hmm. Occasionally in my 45 years, I'll meet someone and be like, they're kind of like me. But in general, being gay in 1980, 81, 82, 83, like when I was growing up, the only images of gay people, I would see a TV show called Phil Donahue, and he would have on somebody who was, going to kill themselves. Like gay people to me were suicidal, or in the early 90s, they were getting AIDS. So It wasn't that, it was pretty scary. And I remember thinking, like I probably had some thoughts of like, I don't want to be gay, or maybe I'm not gay. And actually last year I came out as pansexual because I never knew what that was. But I'm like, I've always liked women. Like once I heard what the Kinsey scale was, I was like, oh, I'm definitely in the middle. Like I never felt totally gay. But I remember coming out as gay because in 1995, we made fun of bisexual people. Like it was not, if you were, it was even on Will and Grace, like there's no such thing. There's no way you take penis and you could possibly be interested in vagina. Like it was just, we were pretty gay men were very shaming towards bisexual people. And then I married a man, so I identified as a gay man, but now I've been single for 5 years and I don't date. I'm very single. I don't pursue either gender. But honestly, if you said you're going to be with a woman in 10 years, I wouldn't be shocked. Like I'm not, like it's not off the table. Like I don't, so that's why when I heard about pansexuality, I'm like, that is it. Like, it's not male, it's not female, it could be trans. Like, I'm all into that. So when I started seeing people be pansexual, I was like, oh, I think that's what I am. So again, I'm not that into labels and identities, but I feel like that helps me make sense of me and my brain. Because when I do say gay men, that doesn't feel like me. Like, I'm like, when I see gay men, I'm like, there's something a little different about me. And I guess that's part of it. Like, no, I'm not a gay man. I am pansexual, you know?
Right.
And again, to come to that realization at 44 years old is hilarious, but I never gave myself the time or space to process thinking about something like that, you know, because I was married to a man, so why would my sexuality matter? I've made a life choice, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
And you were married for a long time, right?
13 years to a wonderful man. His name is Michael. We had a very nice life together. And yeah, I feel very lucky in the love department. I feel that's another thing, like the blessing of good parents and loving parents. You know, I've been done right by love. Like, I had a boyfriend in college for 4 years who couldn't have been a better person, and a more lovely first boyfriend. And then I had a lovely husband from age like 26 to 39. So I feel very lucky in the love department. And I've had great love in my life.
Can I ask how come you guys split up?
You know what? I feel like, could I do short answer, long answer? I feel like the short answer is, I just think we were very different from day one. And I think in general, psych, they teach you opposites attract, but ultimately birds of a feather flock together. And I think a lot of times we meet somebody and they're very different than us. And then 10 years later, we're like, no, I want someone more like me. Yeah. So for whatever reason, at 26, I chose him. I loved him. I adored him. And then as the years went on, and part of it was, I mean, I'm going to say what my career did weird things to my head. And I was a heavy drinker, and I probably never said this to him because I would never want to be like, oh, I left you because I was a drunk, but I was a drunk. By the end, I don't even know if my brain was functioning enough to make the right decisions or the wrong decisions, but I think my alcohol abuse definitely contributed. So again, that's the end of my marriage. Was my career was not going well, and rather than fix it or make it better, I kind of exploded my life. And so, you know, and that's the truth. And I mean, if he ever hears this, I love you. I'm sorry. You're a wonderful person and husband. I didn't have the wherewithal, though, to solve at the time. So I just exploded. And that's why my YouTube career, too, it fell apart because I just wanted to explode. You know, I wanted to explode it a little.
When you say exploded, do you mean you sabotaged?
A little, of course. I mean, that's the thing. Like, I didn't realize at the time how much my alcohol was impacting all of it. So again, I wasn't even thinking clearly. I wasn't making decisions from a clear brain. I was just like, my marriage sucks. My career sucks. I'm out of here. So alcohol checked me out of reality. Alcohol checked me out of life. And now 5 years later, I'm more aware of that. But at the time, if I did an interview, I would have been like, yeah, I would have, I don't know what I would have told you, but it probably wouldn't have been this clear of a version of it, you know?
So did you just leave did you kind of just explode your marriage? Were you just like, did you storm out of YouTube and your marriage?
I mean, I left YouTube slower, but I did leave my marriage abruptly. Yes. Yeah. So.
How do you feel about that?
Peaceful, very peaceful. Like I think about the past, and the only thing I can change about the past is the way I think about the past. So when I think about my marriage, all I think is he was a wonderful man and he adored me and we had a really nice life for 13 years. So that's all I ever think about it. So I don't really go back. That's why when you were asking me a hypothetical about YouTube, I'm like, my brain doesn't go backwards very often. So I would like to think if I was ever married to a man for 13 years again, that I would handle the end of it a little better. But at the time, you know, we all do our best, and sometimes our best is terrible. My best was terrible. And that was, in that moment in 2014, that was the best I could do.
So when did you start drinking?
So it's interesting because I probably started heavily drinking 2012, so I never even drank. I wasn't a teenage drinker. I wasn't a 20s drinker. I didn't start drinking until 2011. We bought a second house on Cape. This was the other thing. So YouTube had kept me so isolated. I really had no friends. I had no life. 2008, 9, 10. I never left the house. I made videos. I talked to strangers in the comment section. I had a husband. And then in 2011, we bought a second home on Cape Cod and we started making friends. And that was the other reason I started tapping out, because it was like, I just want to have friends and a life. And then, I have to go make a YouTube video. So really around then in 2011, 12, 13, we had friends. We went to bars. It was just fun. And so I ignored the fact that my career was on the decline because I was so enjoying normal, real life. So again, along the way, I kind of developed a drinking problem because and I don't identify as an alcoholic. That's not my word. I don't, because I did stop drinking one day and I haven't drank in 4 years. I'm not sober. I'm not in AA. I just realized that alcohol had nothing left to offer me. So, and I didn't drink that much. I drank like 2012, 13, 14, 15. So really 6 years of my entire 40-year life. So it wasn't like it was that big of a thing, So now as a non-drinker, it's like, right, you lived your first 35 years without drinking, so it's not that big a deal, Do
you have an addictive personality?
I don't know. I read a book about that and they said that's just a thing you tell yourself to give you an excuse to be addicted to things. So I do, right. You tell yourself that. No, I think I have my personality is so constrained and focused now. I'm a minimalist. I don't eat fast food. I think,
you got rid of a lot of your items.
I have nothing. I've got clothes. I've got a computer. I have no possessions. These are the only books I have. I have like 10 books. I have nothing. So that's another huge part of my life is minimalism. And again, we could do a whole podcast about that, but I went from 2 homes, 2 basements, 2 attics, 40 years of stuff to a tiny Honda Civic full of everything and everything. I have nothing, Alison. I don't have, you could say move and I would move in an hour. I have nothing. It's so amazing.
I want to feel what that is like. My clutter owns me and it's everywhere. I must know, what are the books that you kept?
Well, my favorite book is Jack Canfield, The Success Principles. I love the 7 highly habits of successful people. I love Love Wins by Rob Bell. I have my Jesus Calling, which is a devotional journal. I have Great Mondays, which is about a good way to have good corporate America. And I did keep all of my The Secret, The Power, all of those types of manifesting books. But I tend to get rid of books too. So I'll read one and then I'll get rid of it. And if I really like it, I'll put it on my iPad. But these are just the few books that I occasionally like to hold in my possession. Yeah.
And is that a whiteboard behind you?
This is a whiteboard because when I'm coaching, I tend to write things on it.
Got it. No, and if people are wondering what we're referring to, youtube.com/Alison Rosen is where you can see that. You can see the blank whiteboard, but I know that you're a fan of giant Post-it notes, right?
Oh my God, excuse me. So I have these big Post-its. And I love Post-its. These are big. So again, compared to this, which is a normal Post-it, this is my Post-it. Yeah. And I use them for affirmations. My whole wall is, these are my best thoughts. These are my best emotions. These are my 6 priorities this year. I have my personal mission statement.
Oh, what is it?
Oh my God, it's so good. Okay, everybody, stop. And again, this will take 30 seconds, but it's so I wrote this last year. Okay. And I encourage you, if you're listening, to write your personal mission statement, because companies do. Companies have a mission statement. They have a manifesto. It's this is who we are. This is what we do. So as you're listening to me, think about how you could apply this to yourself. This is who I am, and this is who I wish to be in the world, because it makes my day so much easier, because if I'm living out of line with that, it's that's not who I wish to be. Right. It's written right there on the wall. So this is my mission statement. I am the greatest love of my life. God is my partner in creating my life on purpose. I live an intentional life of minimalism and contribution. I love others unconditionally, regardless of them. I value deep connections and open minds and hearts. I create time for everything I want to do. My life is full of meaningful work and ridiculously fun play. I use my emotions as superpowers. I defend the dignity of others and fight for equality. I am actively anti-racist. I am always learning, growing, and evolving into new versions of myself. My purpose is to be an example of joy and possibility.
I love that.
Thank you.
I love that. Yeah, I feel inspired talking to you. Occasionally, I will write notes in my phone I tell myself I'm going to read this when I'm feeling low, or I'm going to read this when I'm feeling nervous. It's oftentimes like, because I still am so much in the content world, if I read, negative comments, even though I don't want those voices to be in my head, they will be in my head. And then I have the temptation to like diminish myself or not say something that I want to say. And so most of it's to sort of push that away and just be the most myself I can be. But I'm going to write a longer one. I'm going to get me some of those Post-its and I'm going to put them on my wall.
You need a default thought for every occasion. So every time I go into the YouTube comment section, all I'm thinking is, other people are allowed to not like me. I'm allowed to not take it personally. That's all, again, because otherwise my self-esteem is too hit or miss. If you like me, I feel good. If you don't, I don't feel good. I like me enough for the both of us. I like, love, and approve of me enough. So if you do, I always think if you like and love and appreciate me, that's extra, that's bonus.
Right.
I love, like, and approve of me enough for the both of us. So again, that's why deliberate mindset is so important. Otherwise, I guess I'll see how the comments are and then I'll decide how I feel versus I already know how I feel because I coached myself before I even looked.
You responded to a tweet of mine and it helped me so much. And I'm not going to remember the specific wording, but I posted something and someone like just completely, I posted something and most people understood what I was saying, but a few people didn't. But it really bothered me. When someone doesn't understand me, it bothers me. But I don't want the rest of my day to be spent trying to explain something to someone, especially when their misunderstanding is most likely in bad faith. Or it could be in bad faith. And you were just like, I think you said that you have the default that people are going to understand you, going to misunderstand you.
I might have said, I mean, it's like it's such a primal need. I would never tell somebody, don't worry about being understood. You want to be understood. But again, if especially in a comment section on Facebook or Twitter, if I'm feeling misunderstood, I'm coming in defensive. Mm-hmm. So again, if I'm coming in with the wrong emotion, I'm going to convince you how you're wrong about me. It's not going to work. Right. So again, my strategy is just always let people be wrong about you.
Yes, that's so again, what you said.
Oh, yeah.
It was so liberating.
It is so liberating.
Yeah, because otherwise you spend all day like trying to correct, and it's not the right medium for that anyway. We all know that.
Yes, I can't imagine all the text messages and weird exchanges I used to have with people where I'd go into the Facebook, I think you misunderstood me. I'm going to explain even now if something went on the podcast and it didn't go, I might, Alison, in case I might have said this and just so in case you thought I meant this, I didn't mean, shut up. What? Again, our brain is such a runaway brain that it's like, again, you're just processing the words out of my mouth, however you're processing them. Right. And I'm not going to try and manipulate you so you interpret them differently. Everything I'm saying is fair game. So you've got thousands of people listening to this. Some of them think this guy's an idiot. Some of these guys think he's fun. I'm not going to go in the comment section of your podcast and try and convince the people who think I'm an idiot. But look, I'm fun. Mm-hmm. Did you hear my mission statement? I'm fun.
Something I wanted to ask you. So on Grace Helbig's podcast, you said that you did a strength assessment quiz. Yes. And your number one strength was humor. Your number 3 strength was perspective. And I was sitting there going like, what's number 2? So what was number 2?
Gratitude.
Oh, there you go.
Humor, gratitude, perspective, zest. I love a strengths assessment. And again, in my line of work, humor and perspective is amazing. So again, I always think when you've got coaching tools, you're using your thoughts and your emotions as superpowers to navigate the world. When you know what your strengths are, it's like just knowing in your back pocket. So again, I can solve so many things in my life by using my humor, my perspective, my gratitude. So I do encourage people, again, those types of tests, they can be silly, but if you find a way to use them effectively like I have, they can be very powerful. Yeah.
So you came to the conclusion that drinking was doing you no favors and you just stopped.
I read a book. I have to give credit to a book. So I read a book. It was the Alan Carr Easy Way, Stop Drinking Now.
Nikki Glaser talks about that all the time.
So I had a client. This was when I had just started coaching, maybe in like 2017 or something. And he said, me and my wife read this book and we both stopped drinking. And he said, we have no desire to drink. And I was like, what's the name of the book? I read the book and the next day I stopped drinking in June of 2017. And I had already done the thought work. So I was ready. I had coached myself. My mindset was my life will be better without it, versus in 2016, I stopped drinking. But my thought was, this is going to suck.
Yeah.
And all my friends drink. My entire social life is drinking, and this is going to suck. So I stopped drinking for like a month, and then I was like, I'm fine. So I became a social drinker, and I would drink 2 or 4 drinks. And and then at that point in 2017, I was like, alcohol offers me nothing. And if I'm doing such great work on my life, I want to live a life that I don't have to escape. So why would someone like me need drugs or alcohol or gossip or fast food or indulging in an external thing? Oh, guess what? I don't. And so I could drink right now. It's New Year's. I might have had a sip of champagne. I don't want to be I don't want to be a 1-drink drinker. And I don't want to be, I think that's what I thought. I felt like I got out of a cult. I was like, I'm brainwashed looking at Facebook. Mommy had a stressful week. Give me the wine. Like we're sold alcohol as a strategy. Skinny girl margaritas. Like drinking is sexy. Drinking is dumb. Like no offense, but drinking.
I don't drink either, so
it's pretty. No offense to people who are. It's a little bit. You've been sold something and you bought it, and and the funny thing is when people say they can take it or leave it, I'm always curious. Then why do you take it? So if you're listening to this and you're someone who tells yourself you can take it or leave it, I am curious. Why do you take it? And here's the other interesting question I love to ask people. So I love that they ask someone, hey, why don't you drink? Like they ask you that. You must be pregnant or you must be an alcoholic. Why don't you drink? I think it's way more interesting to ask someone, why do you drink?
Yeah.
No, really, what's your reason for drinking? And if you've got a great reason and you like your reason, then by all means you keep drinking. But I could tell you right now 15 to 20 reasons why I don't drink. I could not make up one reason why I would. Oh, to fit in. Oh, to have something to hold at the bar. Oh, to be more relaxed. There's no reason that I would ever drink. Right. And I love that. It's such a relief.
Yeah. You said that you have a Just Me or Everyone. I would like to hear it, but we have a little song that we play, and here it is.
Sometimes I ponder on something I have thought or done. Is it just me or everyone?
All right. What is yours?
Is it just me, or does everybody wake their dog up from a deep sleep in the middle of the night and kiss him and say, thank God you're alive, I love you so much?
Aww.
I literally wake my dog up and be like, do you know how much I love you? Like, he'll be sleeping and I'll just wake up and I'll be like, you need to know how much I love you. Does everybody do that? Is it just me?
I think a lot of people do that.
Yeah.
I feel like my husband and I are woken up by Wendy, that's our dog, more than she's woken up by us. But there are a lot of like snuggles and kissies in the middle of the night and stuff because she's just so sweet and cute.
Oh, I know.
Go ahead.
He's my dog. His name is Colin. He is, and he is 15 years old. He's the great love of my life. He is named after Colin, Kelly Taylor's coke-dealing boyfriend from Beverly Hills 90210.
Oh, yeah.
Fun fact, because back before Netflix and Hulu and whatever, 90210 reruns used to air every weekend for 3 hours on FX. And my poor ex-husband used to look at me Saturday and Sunday morning and say, are you going to sit here for 3 hours and watch Beverly Hills? So I should have just told you that. Yeah, that's the reason we're not married anymore, because he didn't want me to watch 90210 for 6 hours on the weekend. But so for whatever reason in 2005, I was watching the reruns quite heavily, even though I had watched the original run back in 1991 to 2000. But so I looked at him when we got the dog and I said, I'd like to name him Brandon or Dylan. And he said, there is no way I am naming a dog after a character from Beverly Hills 90210. So after I pulled myself together about 12 hours later, I just said casually, what about Colin? And he said, I love that name. And then maybe 6 years later, I said, I just want you to know you named your dog after a Beverly Hills 90210 character. I tricked you.
How'd that go over?
He loved the dog's name so much at that point that he didn't care. But it was a funny story that, again, mischievous me was like, I'll trick my spouse into naming the dog after a TV character. He won't even know what hit him. Scenes from a marriage.
And I need to know your weighted blanket journey.
Oh my God, Allison. It's so funny because I'm so good at wanting correctly. When I work with people and we goal set, I think about a lot of times our brain miswants things. I want a 4-bedroom house. I want a Mercedes. I want to get married. I want 2 children. Why do you want these things? I don't. And then I get them. And then I'm like, see, you wanted the wrong things. Our brain tends to miswant. I have wired my brain as a minimalist to really be good at wanting. But this weighted blanket was probably my first miswant in a year or so.
Interesting.
I was on the Twitter and Andy Lassner, Ellen's executive producer, tweeted something about a weighted blanket had changed his life. And the first reply I saw was S.E. Cup saying something about a weighted blanket. So then I replied. So I quickly just got caught up in this. Well, I really love Andy and I really love S.E. and I'm going to go on Amazon and spend $150 on a king-size weighted blanket. Now, mind you, I should have just gotten like a $20, $30 throw and see if maybe I would like a weighted blanket. No, I bought a king-size one.
You went all in.
I went all in. Put it on the bed, had it on for about 20 minutes, put it back in the box, and got rid of it. I like freedom. There's no planet where I would ever want a weighted blanket. Like, I don't have anxiety. All the reasons you would get a weighted blanket are not for me. So I had it on. I could see why someone might like one on the couch for a couple hours, but for 8 hours of sleep when I want to move my legs and feel freedom, I don't wish to be under a weighted blanket.
Right.
I get the appeal. It's not for me. It was a miswant thanks to Twitter. Weighted blanket. Yeah, so if you're listening and you want a weighted blanket, get a weighted blanket, but make sure it's not because you're having a cute interaction with Andy and Essie on the twitter.com.
Yeah. It was so nice talking to you, Michael Buckley.
I could not have had more fun. You are a charming and delightful host, and I can see why anybody who comes on your podcast feels like your new best friend, as I do. So thank you so much for allowing me to talk about all this stuff. I had a wonderful time.
Thank you. Tell everyone where they can find you, plug whatever you'd like to plug, etc.
I mean, the best way to interact with me or find me, I do think, is on Instagram stories. So please feel free to follow me. Hey, Michael Buckley. And I am on Twitter. Hey, Buck. Hey, I'm a little rowdy over there and a little opinionated over there. But yeah, so keep in touch. Say hi. And I'd love to hear from you. I do have a website, heymichaelbuckley.com. And so, yeah, keep in touch. And thanks for letting me into your hearts today.
And if people are interested in working with you in the life coaching way, like, are you taking new clients?
I generally am not taking new clients, but I do make exceptions, or I mean, maybe once a month or a couple times a quarter, I will take someone. So feel free to go to my website, heymichaelbuckley.com. There is a form. And again, if I spoke to you today and you are interested in working with me, by all means, fill out the form and I'll get back to you. And if I can't work with you, I'll at least send you some email coaching tools or something to kind of set you in the right direction.
And maybe a weighted blanket.
And maybe a weighted blanket. Can you imagine? That would be like, right, if I ever became a comedian again, I would just be a life coach comedian where I did that. Come to my website. I'm going to send you a weighted blanket. Okay, $99.99. Right. Call now.
If you like what you're hearing, please make sure you're subscribed and leave. Wait, is it right that you invented, or you were the first person to say, like, comment, like, review?
I was absolutely, there's nobody who ever, because I know, because it's on my Wikipedia page that the day I did it, I had the 4 top videos on YouTube, because I remember thinking, oh, what gets you on so people who are young won't know what we're talking about, but back in the day, the YouTube was set up to have top rated, most discussed, most viewed. So nobody was doing calls to action. They were just dumping videos on the YouTube and the things were happening as they were happening, but nobody was asking for comments. Nobody was asking for likes. And the first day I said, rate it even if you hate it. It was 5 stars, leave me. And suddenly my video was gazonkers way more than anybody else's. And I'm like, oh my God. So 4 of my videos were the ranked highest rated of the day. And then the next thing you know, everybody was doing a call to action.
There you
like,
go.
comment, and subscribe. So yes, back in 2007, I uttered the words like, comment, and subscribe. And then I realized, oh, now everybody, and then I noticed, oh, Smosh is doing it. Fine Brothers is, everybody's doing calls to action. So yes, I mean, I like to take credit for it. And I do believe the evidence shows I was the first to at least do it effectively.
Right. Well, I want my content to go gazonkers. So like, comment, subscribe, comments on Apple Podcasts help everyone, comments wherever you listen, but comments help people find the show. Make sure you click 5 stars, tell your friends, etc. Listen to my other podcast, Childish, that I do with Greg Fitzsimmons. I'm on Patreon, patreon.com/Alison Rosen. Bonus episodes every week. We do Zoom parties, all sorts of fun stuff. I have a book out. I'm also on Cameo. These are all my plugs. I hope you've enjoyed them. Thank you again so much. So nice talking to you. Listeners, thank you for listening. You matter. I love you. Goodbye.
Hey, do you know about the Alison Rosen show? We had a good time, but now we gotta go. Yeah, Alison Rosen.